A concerned mother, Sheila, began noticing unusual behaviors in her son Brandon from an early age. It started innocently enough, with Brandon insisting on wearing 3 pairs of shorts at once. But over time, his peculiar habits evolved into troubling behaviors. By his teenage years, Brandon's bedroom was covered in posters of cartoon ponies, revealing an intense fixation on the show My Little Pony. While this alone raised concerns, it was Brandon's extreme reactions and obsessions that worried his family the most. A haunting memory from Brandon's childhood hinted at his deeper struggles. At age 4, he witnessed an argument between his parents, during which his father tragically threatened suicide. Although he did not witness the act, the traumatic event deeply affected him, leading to depression and other behavioral issues. By age 9, Brandon had been diagnosed with disruptive behavior disorder, anxiety, OCD, and depression. His once quirky behaviors escalated into aggressive outbursts, and each visit to the health center revealed worsening symptoms. One day, a seemingly harmless water fight with Sheila's boyfriend, Keith, triggered a severe reaction. Enraged, Brandon locked himself in the bathroom, smashing items before charging out to physically attack Sheila. In a terrifying moment, he grabbed knives and threatened her before the police arrived to de-escalate the situation. Though Sheila only suffered minor injuries, the episode confirmed her fears about the dangers of Brandon's behaviors. Despite attempts to help, his outbursts became more frequent and disturbing. By 2014, Brandon had quit school and spent most of his time in isolation. His internet searches began showing a fascination with mass shootings, though he claimed he would never commit such acts. However, his behavior continued to alarm his family, and by age 18, Brandon decided to purchase a shotgun. Sheila was deeply troubled and warned him about the consequences, but he followed through with his plan, even pointing to a store sticker that read YOLO, and ominously remarking, "There's your sign," though he was unable to buy ammunition. Sheila's fears grew. The next day, she reported Brandon's behavior to the Indianapolis police, sharing her concern that he might try to provoke a suicide by cop scenario. When the authorities intervened, Brandon's primary worry was about his computer, where his search history revealed visits to extremist websites, an aspect Sheila had never anticipated. Indiana's red flag law allowed police to confiscate Brandon's shotgun, but the depth of his online activity revealed that his struggles were even darker than his family imagined. Despite their efforts, Brandon's spiral was far from over, leaving Sheila grappling with the weight of what had led her son down such a tragic path. Sheila first noticed her son Brandon's odd behaviors when he was young, but they became increasingly troubling as he grew older. By his teenage years, he was obsessed with My Little Pony and displayed violent outbursts. After a terrifying incident involving knives, Sheila sought help from doctors and law enforcement, but the system continually released him without significant intervention. Diagnosed with multiple disorders, Brandon's behaviors escalated, and he began fixating on mass shootings. Though his family held out hope when he briefly found work at a FedEx facility, his underlying issues remained unresolved. In 2020, after moving back in with Sheila, Brandon's mental health deteriorated further. He openly stated he felt no empathy and viewed himself as a danger to society. Alarmed, Sheila sought more mental health support, but Brandon's descent continued. He began making unsettling purchases, raising concerns about his intentions. On April 15, 2021, Sheila came home from work, shared dinner with Brandon, and seeing him in good spirits, assumed he was doing better. Unbeknownst to her, Brandon had no plans of returning home that night. He headed to the FedEx facility, armed and with a horrifying plan. Around 11 p.m., he began a deadly shooting spree, targeting employees in both the building and the parking lot. Chaos erupted as employees fled and called 911, with dispatchers trying to keep terrified callers calm amidst the sound of relentless gunfire. The attack left an indelible mark on the community. Sheila later reflected on how the system failed Brandon, unable to provide the intervention needed to address his severe mental health struggles. The tragic events revealed the deep pain and turmoil that Brandon had been carrying all along, leading to an unimaginable outcome. On the morning of January 21, 1986, Virginia May's life was abruptly turned upside down. Living in rural Arapahoe County, Colorado, Virginia, 34, had spent her life in a small farming community, known as the Country Princess. Among her peers, she was admired for her kindness and striking looks, with her fair skin and golden hair. She was raised on her family's wheat farm, where she developed a deep connection to the land, choosing to remain in her hometown after high school to carry on the family's agricultural legacy. She met a kind man, married, and together they built a family, raising 2 young children, a 7-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter on their land. Despite the hardships of farming, Virginia cherished her life, filled with family and hard work. That fateful January day began like any other. Virginia's husband left for town to purchase equipment and seeds in preparation for the upcoming wheat harvest, a seasonal task for the family. Virginia waved him off, thinking it would be an ordinary day. But when he returned later that evening, he found their 2 children alone and visibly shaken. His young son ran to him, crying. Becky took Mom away, worried and confused. He tried to comfort the children, hoping there was some misunderstanding. However, as the minutes passed with no sign of Virginia, he began to fear the worst and decided to contact the local police. Local authorities responded quickly, initiating a search of the family home and its surroundings. News of Virginia's disappearance spread through the small community, and concerned neighbors, friends, and family gathered to assist. Virginia's husband shared with the police his son's words about Becky, the family's neighbor, who lived just a few minutes away. Becky Fincham Davis and her husband, Gary Lee Davis, were a peculiar couple known by locals for their strange behaviors and strained interactions with the community. Though nothing about their past directly implicated them, the couple's reputation raised suspicions. That evening, the police, along with Virginia's husband, visited Becky and Gary's home. Surprised by the late-night visit, Becky and Gary appeared puzzled as the officers explained the reason for their arrival. Both firmly denied any knowledge of Virginia's whereabouts, dismissing the children's words as baseless and even threatening to file a defamation suit against the May family. However, the Davis couple's adamant denials did little to calm the community's anxieties. Many had long felt unsettled by the couple, sensing there was something unsettling beneath their surface interactions. As the days passed, the police investigation intensified. The Davis couple's interactions became increasingly defensive, heightening suspicions. Detectives soon uncovered disturbing information linking Gary to previous violent tendencies and troubling behaviors. Becky, although often seen as Gary's submissive counterpart, also held a dark history. As details began to surface, it became clear that their relationship was marked by dominance and control, and that both had a twisted sense of thrill in their actions, leading detectives to suspect they might be capable of something sinister. On January 24th, 3 days after Virginia's disappearance, authorities received a crucial tip that changed the course of the investigation. Evidence was found linking the couple to the kidnapping and murder of Virginia May. Confronted with undeniable proof, Gary ultimately confessed, revealing the horrific truth that Virginia had been abducted, assaulted, and killed in a brutal act fueled by the couple's twisted motivations. In the wake of this tragedy, the quiet farming community was forever changed, and Virginia's family was left shattered by the senseless act of violence. Gary Lee Davis and Becky Fincham Davis were charged with the murder of Virginia May, a case that would become a haunting reminder of the darker side of human nature lurking behind familiar faces. As the community mourned the loss of Virginia, her tragic death became an enduring cautionary tale about hidden threats in the most unsuspecting places. Virginia May's life was tragically altered on July 21, 1986, when Gary Lee Davis and his wife, Becky Fincham Davis, kidnapped her in front of her children. The couple lured Virginia to a barn under the guise of borrowing tools, then assaulted and abducted her. Gary and Becky, a twisted pair known in the community for their peculiar behavior, drove Virginia to a deserted field where Gary brutally raped her and ultimately took her life, shooting her 14 times. The events leading up to this horrific crime painted a picture of Gary's deeply troubled past. His violent tendencies, fueled by excessive jealousy and alcoholism, had already surfaced during his time in the military, where he once violently attacked a teammate. Diagnosed with homicidal tendencies, he was eventually discharged and struggled to find steady employment, eventually becoming a male stripper. Gary's life took a darker turn after his failed marriage, which left him with pent-up rage and unstable desires. Becky's arrival in his life only escalated these violent tendencies. Despite her troubled past, she formed an intense connection with Gary while he was imprisoned for an earlier assault, and they married in 1984. Together, they began to indulge in their violent fantasies, discussing plans to abduct and exploit women. Eventually, they turned their attention to their neighbor, Virginia, whom they saw as the perfect victim. In the days leading up to Virginia's abduction, Becky had suspiciously contacted Virginia's family and, on the night of the crime, deceived her into leaving the house. After brutally attacking and killing Virginia, the couple hid her body in a pile of hay. When Gary was eventually captured, he attempted to evade the death penalty by falsely claiming Virginia might still be alive, hoping to use this as leverage. Despite initially agreeing to his plea, the authorities soon discovered Gary's deception. The autopsy confirmed Virginia had died from the first gunshots. At the couple's home, investigators uncovered evidence of their sinister lifestyle, including sex toys and letters suggesting Becky's complicity in sustaining Gary's violent urges. On July 21, 1987, a year after Virginia's murder, a jury found Gary guilty. Despite his lawyer's argument for leniency, given Becky's life sentence, Gary was sentenced to death. In 1997, after years of appeals, Gary was executed by lethal injection, marking Colorado's first execution in over 30 years. The case ignited renewed debates about capital punishment, highlighting the impact of Gary's troubled life and volatile relationship with Becky. For Virginia's family, the sentence brought some sense of justice, though it could never erase the horror of her loss. The tragic case of Adrienne Jones, a 16-year-old high school student from Mansfield, Texas, in 1995, gripped the small community and left it reeling. Adrienne was a bright and beloved junior at Mansfield High School, excelling academically and athletically. She balanced a busy schedule with commitments to advanced honors classes, the girls' cross-country team, and a part-time job at a local fast food restaurant. Known for her kindness and dedication, Adrienne aspired to become a veterinarian, driven by her passion for animals. On December 3, 1995, Adrienne was given permission by her parents to stay up late to talk to her boyfriend, Tracy Smith, who was out of town with his family. During their conversation, Adrienne mentioned she had another call coming in from David, a teammate on the cross-country team. The next morning, Adrienne's mother was alarmed to find her daughter missing, with her bed untouched. After calling the police, the family's worst fears were realized. Adrienne's body was discovered miles away on a nearby farm, having suffered gunshot wounds in what appeared to be an execution-style killing. Police quickly began an investigation, and speculation about the possible involvement of gang activity or drugs fueled concerns in the community. Authorities interviewed David Graham, a fellow student and cross-country teammate, who admitted to knowing Adrienne but denied any involvement in her death, claiming to have been studying with his girlfriend, Diane Zamora, that night. Although David was initially a suspect, his apparent lack of close ties to Adrienne, as well as the absence of his number in her phone book, led to his removal from the list of suspects. Attention then shifted to Adrienne's boyfriend, Tracy Smith, who was able to provide an alibi corroborated by a polygraph test. Tracy also mentioned another individual, Brian McMillian, a local teenager who worked near Adrienne's workplace and often visited the restaurant to see her. While Adrienne tried to avoid him, the police decided to question him, discovering that he had developed an obsession with her. During the interview, Brian admitted to knowing Adrienne and confessed he might have visited her house that night, though he claimed he had been drinking heavily. Adrienne's murder left her family, friends, and community devastated. Though the police worked diligently to piece together evidence, the case became a lasting reminder of the dangers that can lurk even in close-knit towns, highlighting the need for continued vigilance and support for vulnerable young people. This story involves a complex tale of love, betrayal, and the tragic consequences that followed in the lives of two couples. The case began when Mansfield, Texas police sought answers in the murder of Adrienne Jones. Initially, they suspected Brian, a friend of Adrienne's. When Brian's father refused to let him take a polygraph test, tensions escalated. Armed officers later stormed Brian's home, concerned he might be dangerous. Yet Brian, known for his calm demeanor, was later cleared when he passed a polygraph. With no solid evidence, he was released. 9 months after the investigation began, a shocking confession emerged, but not from Brian. Diane Zamora, a student at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, confessed to fellow cadets that she and her boyfriend, David Graham, were involved in Adrienne's murder. Although Diane initially denied everything to police, the Naval Academy suspended her, pending an investigation. Police then questioned David at the Air Force Academy in Colorado, and he eventually cracked. In a written confession, he detailed the tragic events. David admitted to an affair with Adrienne that had plagued him with guilt. When he confessed to Diane, she was devastated and furious. The couple concluded that the only way to restore their relationship was through a sinister plot to eliminate Adrienne. David lured Adrienne out late one night, while Diane hid in the car. When they reached a secluded area, Diane attacked Adrienne, but Adrienne fought back, escaping briefly before David fatally shot her. Both David and Diane later claimed the other acted alone, though both were ultimately convicted of Adrienne's murder, receiving life sentences. In a separate case in 2010, Staff Sergeant Nathan Payette's tragic story began when he was found mortally wounded on his doorstep in Las Vegas. Nathan, a committed Air Force serviceman, had spent much of his career dedicated to his family and country. Despite their once strong bond, Nathan's deployments began to strain his marriage with his wife, Michelle. Financial pressures and frequent separations tested their relationship, pushing Michelle into an affair with a man named Michael Sweet Rudy Rodriguez. Upon Nathan's return from his last deployment, he noticed changes in Michelle's appearance and behavior, but he remained unaware of her affair. Striving to make ends meet, Nathan worked additional jobs, while Michelle became increasingly resentful. The holiday season arrived, but instead of joy, it brought tension. Family members visiting for Thanksgiving quickly sensed the troubled atmosphere. In a chilling twist, the tragic incident unfolded when Nathan was fatally shot, leaving his family and community reeling. The once idyllic life Nathan and Michelle had built was shattered. Although the investigations revealed betrayal and heartbreak, Nathan's memory endures as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of love and loyalty. These two cases illustrate the devastating effects of betrayal and unresolved tension in relationships, shedding light on how emotions can escalate into tragic outcomes. Nathan and Michelle's relationship had deteriorated, losing the spark that once defined their union. The strain was evident in their forced interactions, financial hardship, and near-empty pantry. Just a week after a strained Thanksgiving in December 2010, Michelle exchanged late-night messages with her coworker Michael Rodriguez. Their conversation, though seemingly mundane, hinted at a connection beyond work. Michelle mentioned Nathan had just woken her up before leaving for work, masking the underlying tension. Michelle's discontent with Nathan had grown to an unbearable level. She didn't want to stay with him but feared financial instability if they separated. Adding to this was her awareness of Nathan's $650,000 military insurance policy, a benefit she'd receive if he were to die. The thought of divorce morphed into a darker contemplation, ultimately evolving into a scheme when she shared her thoughts with Michael, who found the idea intriguing. They quickly roped in Corey Alexis Hawkins, a known criminal, promising him $20,000. Corey's girlfriend, Jessica Austin, was brought on board to help with the cover-up, along with Shannon, an adult film actress, who agreed to provide an alibi for Michael. The chilling plan was set: Nathan would be ambushed in his Chevrolet Tahoe, which would then be abandoned at an apartment complex. Jessica purchased men's gloves, a car cover, and a fragrance to mask any odor from the crime. On the night of the planned murder, Michelle went home early, claiming illness. She found Nathan asleep, woke him, and suggested they rest together, a final moment of calm before chaos unfolded. As Nathan prepared to leave, Michelle exchanged coded messages with Michael, who was parked nearby in a black Cadillac. As Nathan stepped out, Michael and his accomplice approached, ambushing him. Knowing the risk Nathan's military training posed, Michael shot him 5 times in the back. The attackers then fled to a designated hideout to dispose of their clothes and other evidence. Emergency services soon arrived, led by Detective Todd Williams, who examined the blood-spattered garage where Nathan's body lay near his wallet and keys, which had been left untouched. The absence of stolen items ruled out robbery as a motive, making the case all the more perplexing in what was considered one of the city's safest neighborhoods. With growing suspicions, Detective Lori Anderson interviewed Michelle, noting her remarks about their financial struggles. This discovery prompted the police to explore deeper motives, laying the groundwork for unraveling a web of betrayal. The trials that followed painted a grim picture. Michelle, Michael, Corey, Jessica, and Shannon all faced justice. As the details unfolded, Nathan's grieving family looked on. Michelle, sentenced to life without parole, broke down as the verdict was read, her appeals for leniency overshadowed by the cold-blooded premeditation of her crime. Corey Hawkins, deeply involved in the crime, also received a life sentence, while Jessica, whose role was significant in covering up the crime, was sentenced to 25 years. Shannon, who cooperated with investigators and provided critical testimony, received a reduced 15-year sentence. The courtroom was marked by the presence of Nathan's family, his mother, Carmelita, and his siblings grieving yet relieved as justice was served. Carmelita, embodying grace, even requested the court spare Michelle from capital punishment. In Michelle's final sentencing in 2016, she claimed emotional instability led her down a dark path, asking for forgiveness from Nathan's family. Carmelita, exemplifying deep compassion, extended mercy, though she noted the profound damage Michelle's actions had wrought upon her children and family. In the years that followed, Nathan's legacy continued to resonate within his community. The Air Force honored his dedication by naming a training facility after him. This lasting tribute ensured his story would inspire future generations. Memorials, vigils, and community gatherings became a means for the community to mourn collectively, and Nathan's story began to be shared in schools as a reminder of the importance of integrity, love, and resilience. Michelle's imprisonment brought reflections on the possibility of redemption. While in prison, she attended counseling and educational programs, expressing a desire to understand and atone for her actions. Carmelita became an advocate for victim support services, drawing on her own experiences to help families navigate the aftermath of violent crime. Eric, Nathan's brother, channeled his grief into writing, penning a memoir detailing their childhood in Guam, Nathan's service, and the tragic events that led to his death. The memoir resonated worldwide, shining a light on the personal side of Nathan's story and the impact of betrayal. The Las Vegas community, initially shaken by this tragedy, sought to honor Nathan's memory by launching support programs focused on family support, mental health, and violence prevention. These initiatives were intended to address the root causes of tragedy and to provide resources to those in need, bridging gaps between military and civilian communities and fostering understanding and solidarity. This story, with its layers of love, betrayal, and ultimate loss, leaves a lasting impact on the individuals involved and the community at large. It's a poignant reminder of the consequences of our choices and the pursuit of happiness, sometimes at the expense of others. Nathan's life, marked by service and love, stands as a testament to the values he cherished. His tragic end, while devastating, sparked a wave of positive change, emphasizing the power of forgiveness, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of justice.